We're back, and we're doing more reading. Whoop-de-frickin-doo. And, yeah, we gotta start knocking out some of these series that we have from the main story. So, Chim, this was volume 6. Alright, I'm gonna put, like, in parentheses on my phone, just, like, which volume these all are. Just that, I myself don't get lost. This is volume 10, More Than Mortal. There's not even all the volumes, so I don't know if this is really going to end up forming like an actual story, but I don't know, we'll find out. Volume 3. Okay, well, we're going to be starting... Oh, shit. We're going to be starting with the Ransom of Zarek, apparently. And then there's one other, which is The Seed, which is part 2. Alright. Cool. Alright, so how long are these books? Because there's 5 of them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we got 5 books that we got to read. I think I already read one of them in the past, but I'm not going to go back and fucking reread it. So I'm probably going to do this as like 2 and 3 or 3 and 2. What we got? 18, 15. That's not bad. 18, 15, 11. 12, 14. Alright, we're going to read just 2 books, I suppose, in this video. Maybe we'll read Shivering Isles book as well. We'll see. But we're going to read at least 2 books in this video. We're going to read The Ransom of Zarek as well as The Seed. And then probably also, something else. Actually, no, maybe I'll just read the first 3 books right now, and then in the next video I'll do the 2 and then something else, I don't know. The Ransom of Zarek, though. 18 pages, let's do it. The Ransom of Zarek, Ancient Tales of the Dwemer, Part 1, by Marabar Sol. Is that a U? Is that a J? Is that an I? Is that repeated anywhere? I can't tell. Fuck, dude. What even letter is that? Oh my god. I want to say it's an I? It's gotta be an I, right? Bro, like, that shit's just way too fancy. I'm just gonna pretend as if it's not even there. Alemil stood in her garden and read the letter her servant had brought to her. The bouquet of joss roses in her hand fell to the ground. For a moment, it was as if all birds had ceased to sing, and a cloud had passed over the sky. Her carefully cultivated and structured haven seemed to flood with darkness. "We have thy son," it read. "We will be in touch with thee shortly with our ransom demands." Zarek had never made it as far as Akgan, after all. One of the brigands on the road, orcs probably, or accursed Dwemer, must have seen his well-appointed carriage and taken him hostage. Jalamel clutched at a post for support, wondering if her boy had been hurt. He was but a student, not the sort to fight against well-armed men, but had they beaten him, it was more than a mother's heart could bear to imagine. "Don't tell me they sent the ransom note so quickly," called a family voice, and a familiar face appeared through the hedge. It was Zarek. Jalamil hurried to embrace her boy, tears running down her face. "What happened?" she cried. "I thought thou had been kidnapped." "I was," said Zarek. 3 huge soaring Nords attacked by carriage on the Frimvorn Pass. Brothers, as I learned, named Matthias, Ulin, and Kurg. Thou should have seen these men, mother. Each one of them would have had trouble fitting through the front door, I can tell thee." "What happened?" I'm just gonna call her Jael. "What happened?" Jael repeated. "Were thou rescued? I thought about waiting for that, but I knew they'd send off a ransom note, and I know how thou does worry. So I remembered what my mentor Akgan always said about remaining calm, observing thy surroundings, and looking for thy opponent's weaknesses." Zarek grinned. "It took a while, though, because these fellows were truly monsters. And then, when I listened to them bragging to one another, I realized that vanity was their weakness." "What did thou do?" "They had me chained at their camp in the woods not far from Kale, on a high knoll overlooking a wide river. I heard one of them, Korg, telling the other that it would take the better part of an hour to swim across the river and back. They were nodding in agreement when I spoke up. "I could swim that river and back in 30 minutes, I said. "Impossible," said Korg. "I can swim faster than a little whelp like thee." So it was agreed that we would dive off the cliff, swim to the center island, and return. As we went to our respective rocks, Korg took it upon himself to lecture me about all the fine points of swimming. Oh, classic Oblivion story. Just, oh wow, I'm trying to escape some situation. I'm gonna take the advice of this dude, and then use that in order to escape. Whoa. As we went to our respective rocks, Korg took it upon himself to lecture me about all the fine points of swimming. The importance of synchronized movements of the arms and legs for maximum speed, how essential it was to breathe after only third or fourth strokes, not too often to slow thyself down, not too often to slow thyself down, but not too often to lose one's air. Too unoften. I nodded and agreed to all his fine points. Then we dove off the cliffs. I made it to the island and back in a little over an hour, but Korg never returned. He had dashed his brains at the rocks at the base of the cliff. I had noticed the telltale undulations of underwater rocks, and had taken the diving rock on the right. "But thou returned?" asked Jael, astounded. "Was that not then when thou escaped?" "It was too risky to escape then," said Zarek. "They could have easily caught me again, and I wasn't keen to be blamed for Korg's disappearance. I said I did not know what happened to him." I mean, that's still super suspicious, though. "And after some searching, they decided he had forgotten about the race and had swum ashore to hunt for food." Yeah. They could not see how I could have had anything to do with his disappearance, as fully visible as I was throughout my swim. The two brothers began making camp along the rocky cliff edge, picking an ideal location so that I would not be able to escape. One of the brothers, Matthias, began commenting on the quality of the soil and the gradual incline of the rock that circled around the bay below. Ideal, he said, for a foot race. Oh boy. I expressed my ignorance of the sport, and he was keen to give me details of the proper technique for running a race. He made absurd faces showing how one must breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, how to bend one's knees to the proper angle on the rise, the importance of sure foot placement. Most important, he explained, was that the runner keep an aggressive but not too strenuous pace if one intends to win. It is fine to run in second place through the race, he said, provided one has the willpower and strength to pull out in the end. I was an enthusiastic student, and Matthias decided that we ought to run a quick race around the edge of the bay before night fell. Ulin told us to bring back some firewood when we came back. We began at once down the path, skirting the cliff below. I followed his advice about breath, gait, and foot placement, but I ran with all my power right from the start. Ah, you idiot. Despite his much longer legs, I was a few paces ahead as we rounded the first corner. With his eyes on my back, Matthias did not see the gape in the rock that I jumped over. He plummeted over the cliff before he had a chance to cry out. I spent a few minutes gathering some twigs before I returned to Ulin at camp. "Now thou were just showing off," frowned Jael. "Surely that would have been a good time to escape." "Thou might think so, but I had one more man to kill," agreed Zarek. "But thou had to see the topography, a few large trees, and then nothing but shrubs. Ulin would have noticed my absence and caught up with me in no time, and I would have had a hard time explaining Matthias's absence. However, the brief forage around the area allowed me to observe some of the trees close up, and I could formulate my final plan. When I got back to camp with a few twigs, I told Ulin that Matthias was slow coming along, dragging a large dead tree behind him. Ulin scoffed at his brother's strength, saying it would take him time to pull up a live tree by the roots and drop it on the bonfire. I expressed reasonable doubt. "I'll show thee," he said, ripping up a 10-foot tall specimen effortlessly. "But that's scarcely a sapling," I objected. "I thought thou could rip up a tree." His eyes followed mine to a magnificent, heavy-looking one at the edge of the clearing. Ulin grabbed it and began to shake it with a tremendous force to loosen its roots from the dirt. With that, he loosened the hive from the uppermost branches, dropping it down onto his head. "That was when I made my escape, Mother," said Zarek in conclusion, showing a little schoolboy pride. While Matthias and Kurg were at the base of the cliff, and Ulin was flailing about, engulfed by a swarm. Jael embraced her son once again. "Wow, what a good boy, killing 3 men in the process. Woo! I guess only 2. Publisher's note. I was reluctant to publish the works of Marabar Sol, but when the University of Gwillem Press asked me to edit this edition, I decided to use this as an opportunity to set the record straight once and for all. Scholars do not agree on the exact date of Marabar Sol's work, but it is generally agreed that they were written by the playwright Gore Phelim, famous for popular comedies and romances during the interregnum between the fall of the First Cyrodiilic Empire and the rise of Tiber Septim. The current theory holds that Phelim heard a few genuine Dwemer tales and adapted them to the stage in order to make money, along with rewritten versions of many of his own plays. Gore Phelim created the persona of Marabar Sol, who could translate the Dwemer language in order to add some sort of validity to the work and make it even more valuable to the gullible. Notes that while Marabar Sol and his works became the subject of heated controversy, there are no reliable records of anyone actually meeting Marabar Sol, nor was there anyone of that name employed by the Mages Guild, the School of Julianos, or any other intellectual institution. In any case, the Dwemer in most of the tales of Marabar Sol bear little resemblance to the fearsome, unfathomable race that frightened even the Dunmer, Nords, and Redguards into submission, and built ruins that even now have yet to be understood. Oh yeah, I feel like I remember reading about that a long time ago. How like this whole story is just like, yeah, just bullshit. It's just all a bunch of bullshit tales, quote unquote tales. Well, whatever. We're still reading them. That ain't gonna change shit. And now we got The Seed. Ancient Tales of the Dwemer Part 2 by, supposedly, Marabar Sol. The hamlet village of Lorcan was a quiet, peaceful Dwemer community, nestled in the monochrome gray and tan dunes and boulders of the Djest. No vegetarian of any kind grew in Lorca, though there were blackened vestiges of long-dead trees scattered throughout the town. Kimdita, arriving by caravan, looked at her new home with despair. She was used to the forest land of the north where her father's family had hailed. Here there was no shade, little water, and a great open sky. It looks like a dead land. I don't think any of these stories are... Yeah, these are just different, like, individual stories. Yeah, there's no actual relation to them, so that's good. Her mother's family took Kimdita and her younger brother Nevith in, and was very kind to the orphans, but she felt lonely in the alien village. It was not until she met an old Argonian woman who worked at the water factory that Kimdita found a friend. Her name was Sigurth, and she said that her family had lived in Lorca centuries before the Dwemer arrived, when it was a great and beauteous forest. "Why did the trees die?" asked Kimdita. "When there were Argonians only in this land, we never cut trees, for we had no need for fuel or wooden structures, such as you use. When the Dwemer came, we allowed them to use the plants as they needed them, provided they never touched the Hist, which are sacred to us and to the land. For many years, we lived peaceably. No one wanted for anything. What happened? Some of your scientists discovered that distilling a certain tree sap, molding it and drying it, they could create a resilient kind of armor called resin," said Sigurth. "Most of the trees that grew here had very thin ichor in their branches, but not the Hist. Many of them fairly glistened with sap, which made the Dwemer merchants greedy. They hired a woodsman named Jenin to start clearing the sacred arbors for profit." The old Argonian woman looked to the dusty ground and sighed. "Of course, we Argonians cried out against it. It was our home, and the Hist, once gone, would never return. The merchants reconsidered, but Junin took it in his own to break our spirit. He proved one terrible, bloody day that his prodigious prodigious skill with the axe could be used against people as well as trees. Any Argonian who stood in his way was hewn asunder. Children as well, oh jeez. The Dwemer people of Lorcan closed their doors and their ears to the cries of murder. Horrible, gasped Candida. It is difficult to explain, said Sigurth, but the deaths of our living ones were not nearly as horrible to us as the death of our trees. You must understand that to my people, the Hist are where we come from and where we are going. To destroy our bodies is nothing. To destroy our trees is to annihilate us utterly. When Junin then turned his axe on the Hist, he killed the land. The water disappeared, the animals died, and all the other life that the trees nourished crumbled and dried to dust. But you are still here, asked Candida. Why didn't you leave? For us, we are trapped. I am one of the last of a dying people. Few of us are strong enough to live away from our ancestral groves, and sometimes, even now, there is a perfume in the air of Loric that gives us life. It will not be long until we are all gone. Candida felt tears welling up in her eyes. Then I will be alone in this horrible place with no trees and no friends. We Argonians have an expression, said Sigurth, with a sad smile, taking Candida's hand, that the best soil for a seed is found in your heart. Candida looked into the palm of her hand and saw that Sigurth had given her a small black pellet. It was a seed. It looks dead. It can only grow in one place in all Lorcan, said the old Argonian, outside an old cottage in the hills outside town. I cannot go there, for the owner would kill me on sight, and like all my people, I am too frail to defend myself now. But you can go there and plant the seed. What will happen? Asked Candida. Will the Hist return? No, but some part of their power will. That night, Candida stole from her house and into the hills. She knew the cottage Sigurth had spoken of. Her aunt and uncle had told her never to go there. As she approached it, the door opened, and an old but powerfully built man appeared, a mighty axe slung over his shoulder. What are you doing here, child? He demanded. In the dark. I almost took you to be a lizard man. I've lost my way in the dark, she said quickly. I'm trying to get back to my home in Loric. Be on your way, then. Do you have a candle I might have? She asked piteously. I've been walking in circles, and I'm afraid I'll only return back here without any light. The old man grumbled and walked into the house. Quickly, Candida dug a hole in the dry dirt and buried the seed as deeply as she could. He returned with a lit candle. See to it you don't come back here, he growled, or I'll chop you in half. He returned to his house and fire. The next morning, when he awoke and opened the door, he found that his cottage was entirely sealed within an enormous tree. He picked up his axe and delivered blow after blow to the wood, but he could never break through. He tried side chops, but the wood healed itself. He tried an upper chop followed by an under chop to form a wedge, but the wood sealed. Much time went by before someone discovered old Junin's emaciated body lying in front of his open door, still holding his blunted, broken axe. It was a mystery to all what he had been chopping with it. But the legend began circulating through Loric that his sap was found on the blade. Shortly thereafter, small desert flowers began pushing through the dry dirt in the town. Trees and plants newly sown began to live tolerably well, if not luxuriantly. The Hist did not return, but Candida and the people of Loric decided that at a certain time around twilight, long, wide shadows of great, bygone trees would fill the streets and hills. Wow, another publisher's note. All right. The Seed is one of Marbar Sol's tales, whose origins are well known. This tale originated from the Argonian slaves of southern Morrowind. Marbar Sol merely replaced the Dwemer with Dwemer, and claimed he found it in a Dwemer ruin. Yeah, complete bullshit, huh? Furthermore, he later claimed that the Argonian version of the tale was merely a retelling of his original. Loric, while certainly not a Dwemer name, simply does not exist, and in fact, Loric was a name commonly used incorrectly for Dunmer men in Gore-Fellam's plays. The Argonian versions of the story usually take place on Vardenfell, usually in the Telvanni city of Sadrith Mora. Of course, the so-called scholars of Temple Zero will probably claim the story has something to do with Lorcan, simply because the town starts with the letter with the letter L. Derp. Okay. And book number 3 was The Importance of Weir. The Importance of Weir, The Ancient Tales of the Dwemer, quote-unquote Dwemer, Part 3 by Mara Barsel. The chieftain of Othrabar gathered his wise men together and said, "Every morning and tenfold of my flock are found butchered. What is the cause?" Fangbith, the war leader, this is just fucking orcs now, okay. Fangbith, the war leader, said, "A monster may be coming down from the mountain and devouring your flock. Gork, the healer, said, "A strange new disease perhaps is to blame." Baron the priest said, "We must sacrifice to the goddess for her to save us." The wise men made sacrifices, and while they waited for their answers from the goddess, Fangbith went to mentor Jolterig and said, "You taught me well how to forge the cudgel of Zolia and how to wield it in combat, but I must know it now when it is wise to use my skill. Do I wait for the goddess to reply, or the medicine to work, or do I hunt the monster which I know is in the mountain?" "When is not important," said Jolterig. "Where is all that is important." So Fangbith took his Zolik cudgel in hand and walked far through the dark forest until he came to the base of the great mountain. There he met 2 monsters, one bloodied with flesh of the chieftain of Orthrabar's flock fought him while its mate fled. Fangbith remembered what his master had taught him, that Weir was all that was important. He struck the monster on each of its 5 vital points: head, groin, throat, back, and chest. 5 blows to the 5 points and the monster was slain. It was too heavy to carry with him, but still triumphant, Fangbith returned to Othrabar. "I say I have slain the monster that ate your flock," he cried. "What proof have you that you have slain any monster?" asked the chieftain. "I say I have saved the flock with my medicine," said Gork the healer. "I say the goddess has saved the flock by my sacrifices," said Baron the priest. 2 mornings went by and the flocks were safe, but on the morning of the 3rd day, another tenfold of the chieftain's flocks were found butchered. Gork the healer went to his study to find a new medicine. Baron the priest prepared more sacrifices. Fangbith took his Zolik cudgel in hand again and walked far through the dark forest until he came to the base of the great mountain. There he met the other monster, bloodied with the flesh of the chieftain of Orthrabar's flock. They did battle, and again Fangbith remembered what his master had taught him, that Weir was all that was important. He struck the monster 5 times on the head, and it fled, chasing it along the mountain. He struck it 5 times in the groin, and it fled, running through the forest. 5 times to the nuts, that's gonna suck. Fangbith overtook the monster and struck it 5 times in the throat, and it fled. Entering into the fields of Othrabar, Fangbith overtook the monster and struck it 5 times in the back, and it fled. At the foot of the stronghold, the chieftain and his wise men emerged to the sound of the monster wailing. There they beheld the monster that had slain the chieftain's flock. Fangbith struck the monster 5 times in the chest, and it was slain. A great feast was held in Fangbith's honor, and the flock of Othrabar was never again slain. Jolterig embraced his students and said, "You have at last learned the importance of where you strike your blows." Okay, I figured it'd be like the location, but sure, okay. Publisher's note: this tale is another which has an obvious origin among the Ashlander tribes of Vardenfell. Oh, okay, yeah. And maybe they're all just dumber, I don't know. And is one of their oldest tales. Marabar Soul merely changed the names of the character to sound more dwarven, and resold it as part of his collection. The great mountain in the tale is clearly Red Mountain, despite its description of being forested. The starfall and later eruptions destroyed the vegetation on Red Mountain, giving it the wasted appearance it has today. This tale does have some scholarly interest, as it suggests a primitive Ashlander culture, but it talks of living in strongholds, much like the ruined strongholds on Vardenfell today. There are even references to a stronghold of Othrabar, somewhere between Vardenfell and Skyrim, but few strongholds outside of sparsely settled Vardenfell have survived to the present. Scholars do not agree on who built these strongholds or when, but I believe it is clear from this story and other evidence that the Ashlander tribes used these strongholds in the ancient past instead of making camps of wheat huts as they do today. The play on words that forms the lesson of the fable, that it is as important to know where the monster should be slain, at the stronghold, as it is to know where the monster must be struck on its body to be slain. It is typical of many Ashlander tales. Riddles, even ones as simple as this one, are loved by both the Ashlanders and the vanished Dwemer, although the Dwemer are usually portrayed as presenting the riddles rather than being the ones who solve it, as in Ashlander tales. Alright, cool, yeah, we're reading some Tales of the Dwemer, who are not actually Tales of the Dwemer, but actually just Tales of the Dunmer. He just mixed up the words, that's all. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today. So, with that, thank you guys for watching. When next we return, we're gonna finish these ancient tales of the quote-unquote Dwemer. Can you let me jump? Oh god. Can you let me jump and move? Okay, there we go. Jeez, alright. And then we'll probably also read a little bit extra after that. I don't really know. Yeah, thank you for watching. Another day reading books. Whoop-de-doo. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.
Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you.